Hi, welcome to my channel, True Crime with Gael, where horror for the holidays is taking place. Just want to say really quickly that I finally ordered a new microphone that should be better than the one I currently have. But because I live in an out-of-the-way place, they probably won't reach me until after New Year's. But we'll see. Anyway, thanks so much for stopping by. If you do enjoy this video, please like, comment, or subscribe. Alright, let's begin. Valerie, Shantia, and Duana Pride. Valerie Pride and her two children, Shantia and Duana, were found murdered inside their home in Phoenix, Arizona, more than 35 years ago. The person responsible for their deaths has yet to be brought to justice. At the time of their deaths, 8-year-old Shantia Pride had attended Sierra Vista Grade School. Valerie Pride was the first Black female electrician working at the Palo Verde nuclear plant, which was a remarkable accomplishment at that time. She was also an Arizona native and attended South Mountain High School and Arizona State University, and was in the last year of a 4-year apprentice program co-sponsored by the local 640. She had 5 sisters and 1 brother, and loved to rollerblade and spend time with her friends and children. At around 9 p.m. on September 6, 1982, Valerie, who was 25, was at her Spanish-style home on the 1500 block of East Ardmore, in the South Mountain neighborhood of Camelot View. The family had lived there for only a few weeks. On this night, she was talking on the phone with a friend. In one source, this friend was reported as being her current boyfriend's brother. When she heard a knock at her door at around 9:30 p.m., Valerie told her friend that she was going to hang up the phone so that she could answer the door. A short while later, a neighbor heard a commotion that sounded like an argument or a fight at around 9:45 p.m., but they did not see anyone leave or enter the house. About 15 minutes later, Valerie's boyfriend, Ben Daniels, who was 33 at the time, arrived home from the hospital, where his 9-year-old daughter, Zena, had just been pronounced dead 6 hours earlier. Zena drowned after having an epileptic seizure while taking a bath at her house, located on the 500 block of West Desert Drive. Her mother claimed to have left her alone for only a few minutes. When Ben entered the house and witnessed the horrific scene that awaited him, he began to scream. A neighbor heard his screams and immediately called 911. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Valerie Pride and her 2 daughters dead. 8-year-old Shantia and her 4-year-old sister, Duana, were in their pajamas when their bodies were found in the living room area of the home. They were huddled together near a love seat. Valerie was found in the dining area near the rear Arcadia door. The girl's biological father, Jimmy Pride, arrived on the scene at 11 p.m. and was restrained in handcuffs after becoming hysterical. An autopsy revealed that each member of the Pride family had been stabbed multiple times, and one of the girls' bodies had been mutilated during the attack. They were not, however, sexually violated. It was determined that Valerie may have known her assailant because there was no sign of forced entry. Investigators also concluded that after the killing, the suspect fled the scene through the back door and jumped over a wooden fence, leaving a patch of blood on the rails. 2 years later, a knife was located in a neighbor's yard, but police could not discern if it was the weapon used in the killings. Although they are unsure of the motive, investigators have stated that it did not appear to be a robbery. There were rumors that there may have been some revenge aspect to the slayings against Valerie's boyfriend, Ben. This was specifically relating to the drowning of his daughter, Zena. A little less than a month after the killings, police took a 14-year-old high school student into custody, who was a cousin to Ben's daughter, Zena. He was detained at the Maricopa County Juvenile Detention Center for questioning, but no other information has been provided since then. Another possible theory was that the killings were tied to a robbery that had occurred in Valerie's home a month prior to the murder in August. A waterbed had been slashed, and the Pride's clothes had all been dumped into the water. In April 1984, detectives continued their investigation, canvassing the neighborhood and questioning friends and relatives of the victims, but they have yet to find a suspect. Anyone with information about the murders of Valerie Pride and her 2 daughters, Shantia and Duana, is asked to call the silent witness at 480-948-6377 or 1-800-343-TIPS. Tamika Williams and Jade Allen. 48-year-old Tamika Williams and her 15-year-old daughter, Jade Allen, were found murdered inside a bedroom of their home in North Lauderdale, Florida, more than 3 years ago, in 2017. They'd only been living there for a few months before the frightening event took place. Jade Allen was a smart, outgoing high school student with a bright future. She was a 9th grade student at Blanche Ely High School in Pompano Beach. Her relatives described her as a social butterfly who had the prettiest smile and could just be goofy just to make you laugh. She was that typical teenager. Tamika Williams was a dedicated, loving mother to her 5 children. She was known as a reserved person whose life revolved around her children. When she wasn't at work, she was at home with her children. What makes this case even sadder is that news outlets can't seem to agree on basic information. Some articles spelled the name of Jade's mother, Tamika, and others used the name Tamoka. I would assume that this is the most basic piece of information, and it's amazing that they couldn't even get that right. I ended up using Tamika because that was how the most recent news article chose to spell her name. At around 5:20 a.m. on January 28, 2017, law enforcement officers with the Broward Sheriff's Office were dispatched to a home in the 6800 block of Doral after receiving a 911 call about a shooting. When officers arrived at the location, they discovered two small children inside the home who were uninjured. However, their 48-year-old mother and 15-year-old sister had been shot. Jade was pronounced dead at the scene. Emergency first responders transported Tamika to Broward Health North, where she succumbed to her injuries shortly upon arrival. Police learned through an investigation that while Williams and her daughter were asleep in the same bed, an unknown gunman shot them multiple times. When Tamika's two other children heard the shots and heard their mother scream, "Help me, I got shot," they locked the door and called 911 for help. Homicide detective Zachary Scott is quoted as saying, "Based on our investigative findings, so far we don't believe this is a random act. This was someone personal who knew one, if not both, of our victims, and probably acted from some form of emotion, extreme emotion, whether it's anger or jealousy. Because of that extreme emotion, we believe that they're probably still very emotional. They probably said something to somebody, maybe not admitting exactly what they did, but statements that have caught someone's attention." A relative is quoted as telling the media that they believe the killer may be somebody they know. It's someone very close to them, someone just very close to us. So at that point, that leaves everybody as a suspect. You don't really know who you can even talk to.
You looked at everybody as a suspect, and you had to peel them apart. And you start from the outside working in, then you go from the inside working out.
On January 27th, 2017, Tamika and Jada went to sleep in the same bed at their North Lauderdale home. On January 28th, at around 5 a.m., two other children in the home woke up to the sound of gunshots.
These are children who heard their mother and their sister getting shot and eventually learning that they were murdered.
When detectives arrived at the home near West McNabb Road and 71st Avenue, they say it was a bloody scene. According to investigators, the mother and daughter were shot multiple times inside Jada's room.
It was a pretty gruesome scene inside the bedroom.
For someone to just come in, a thief in the night, and just steal their life, and that's what they did. They stole their life from us because that can't be replaced and there's no value on it.
Detectives did not see any signs of forced entry into the home, but believe the killer was familiar with the layout and may have even known the mother and daughter.
They intended to shoot both victims and that they deliberately shot both victims. It wasn't chaotic. It wasn't just indiscriminate. It was directed.
Maybe you heard something. Maybe you saw something. Maybe you didn't just pay anybody attention. You just wasn't really listening to them. Just think back to January 28, 2017.
Family members said Tamika left behind 2 adult children and 2 young children. Tamika's sister Nicole is caring for the 2 younger children. Tamika was murdered just days before her son turned 5 years old. Investigators have worked diligently to find the person who killed the mother and daughter, but ultimately their case turned cold. Anyone with information regarding the murders of Tamika Williams and Jada Allen is encouraged to contact either the Broward Sheriff's Office at 954-321-4214, Crime Stoppers at 954-493-8255, 8477 or visit www.browardcrimestoppers.org. Crime Stoppers is offering a reward of $6,000 for more information. Shimpabin and Anita Patel. The violent murders of Shimpabin and Anita Patel, a mother and daughter from Windsor, Connecticut, have been a mystery since they happened on March 21st, 1996. Shimpabin Patel, who was 54, was killed first in her bedroom. Her face and hands had been wrapped in duct tape. She subsequently suffocated, and her bedroom was set on fire. Anita Patel, who was 32 at the time, and her 2 children showed up at the house during the attack. At around 8 a.m., Anita parked her van in the driveway and entered the house through a door connected to the 2-bay garage. She started going upstairs when she sensed something was wrong. This was when she turned and told her children to run away, screaming, "Go, go, go, get out!" Anita's escape was stopped in the kitchen area, where she was stabbed with a pair of kitchen scissors in the back so hard they remained lodged in her body. The killer or killers took 4 knives out of a drawer and stabbed her with them 14 times in all. Despite that brutal attack, Anita nearly made it out of the house. Her bloody handprint was found either on or near the handle of a sliding glass door. Police believe she was dragged back into the house by her pantyhose. A ring of gasoline was poured around her body, and it was set on fire. The medical examiner determined that Anita was still alive when the fire was set, because she died of smoke inhalation, not of the stab wounds. Anita's children, aged 3 and 4 at the time, ran out of the house and down the street, where a woman going to her mailbox found them and called police. Police interviewed the older child, Ronnie, who said she saw a bad man wearing a white mask doing something to her mother. Similar to Tamika Williams' son, Ronnie turned 5 the day after the homicides. In March 2006, Governor M. Jody Rell authorized a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction in the slayings. Investigators also began working with members of the Vidak Society, who donate their scientific and crime-solving expertise in unsolved cases. The society was founded in 1990 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to further the resolution of long unsolved homicides. It is made up of volunteer forensic experts and investigators who serve as confidential consultants to assist law enforcement in solving difficult cases. Its members include profilers, criminologists, forensic scientists, medical examiners, active and retired law enforcement agents, prosecutors, polygraph examiners, and others skilled in solving these cases. The police quickly focused on Anita's brother and Shimpabin's son, Jatin, for multiple reasons. The killings probably were committed by someone with intimate knowledge of the house. There were no signs of forced entry. The duct tape had been removed from the garage and returned to its right place after the murders, and the can of gasoline used to ignite the fires was taken from a hidden spot in the garage. In addition to this, the gas can was labeled as disinfectant. Police discounted robbery as a motive because $600 was found in Champabin's purse, and several pieces of expensive jewelry were found in the house. Jatine was the only family member who didn't have a verifiable alibi for the hours of 7:30 to 9:26 a.m., the time during which the police believe the killings occurred. Jatine told police he awoke at around 5:45 that morning and drove to a McDonald's in West Hartford for breakfast. That McDonald's was more than 10 miles from his Farmington home, and he had to pass 2 other McDonald's along the way. He then claimed to drive his van across the street to a supermarket parking lot and worked on his laptop computer until his battery went dead, read some computer software programming manuals, and then went to work at 10 a.m. On the day of the killings, Jatine arrived at the Windsor police station with a scratch over his eye. However, police failed to take a photo, and in his later deposition, Jatine denied he ever had a scratch. Jatine had also tried to claim a $231,000 insurance policy payout on Champabin's death 8 days after the killings. The insurance company refused to pay because of the questions surrounding the death and his possible involvement. Police believe Jatine Patel had a double motive for the killings. The first being that Jatine had a prolonged feud with his mother and sister over what he considered the disrespect they showed his wife, Seema. Family members told police the feud got so bad that on holidays, Jatine and Seema refused to speak to Anita or Champabin. I could not find further information describing the cause of the feud. Jatine was also experiencing financial difficulties. His mother had broken from the Hindu tradition of setting up the eldest son as the family's caregiver by refusing to provide him access to her money. Instead, she deposited her life savings, which was over $90,000, into an account that named daughters Anita and Parul as benefactors. Jatine owed more than $45,000 on 8 credit cards, as well as money he owed to clients who had given him cash to invest through his business, guaranteed returns. He promised 12 to 15% profits within a year. Jatine also spent at least $3,000 on dates with women from a Hartford escort service. Jatine told police he hired the woman as part of his research into whether he should open a business providing dinner dates for men. The double homicide and suspicions about Jatine's involvement have torn the family apart. Bharat Patel, Anita's husband, said that he doubts whoever killed his wife will ever be caught. Bharat said no one had a clue before the killings about the money trouble Jatine was experiencing. He was considered the smartest in the family, Bharat said. Bharat also said, his alibi was very bad and unbelievable. And there were the activities that his wife didn't know about. Everyone in the family said, "We think you had something to do with it." Jatine had one face in social interactions with the family, and another when he was by himself. I felt like he was leading a double life. In a court deposition, taken as part of the lawsuit filed against him by his family, Jatine Patel denied he was angry at his mother for keeping her money separated. He said, quote, "I didn't agree with what she was doing. I thought we were a family and there was no reason for her to do that. But if she desired to do that, that was fine. It was not my view." Within a few months of the killings, Jatine and his wife Seema failed polygraph tests administered at the Windsor Police Department. Seema was read as being deceptive when asked if she had knowledge of the homicides. Jatine was seen as deceptive when asked if he knew who killed them. Jatine said that he didn't trust the results and that police had set him and his wife up that day. He has refused to take another polygraph or talk to the police again since then. Furthermore, let's not forget that polygraph tests are notoriously unreliable, to the point that they cannot be used as evidence in a trial. A 3-page confession letter was also mailed to police a few months after the homicides. The typed letter said, "We were hired by a person named Neela to kill them." Neela is Jatine's cousin. The letter stated that the writer was implicating Neela because the writer was paid $5,000 rather than the $10,000 promised. Police had the letter compared with other writings by Jatine, and the linguistics expert concluded that Jatine might have written it. Investigators speculated that Jatine was attempting to frame his cousin. Jatine claims a Windsor police officer typed it, so his family would further suspect him. Less than 18 months after the homicides, Jatine and Seema had moved to the town of Hendersonville, Tennessee. Officers showed up at the house to speak to Seema alone after contacting Jatine at his job. They brought along photos of some of the women that Jatine had hired through the escort service. Seema angrily called to confront her husband, but she listened to Jatine when he told her not to talk to the police. Afterwards, lead detective Deborah Swanson added to the discrediting of how the police handled this case. Swanson took the highly unusual and unprofessional investigative step of writing a personal letter to Seema. In the letter, Swanson apologized for having to inform her about the escorts, but that she needed to know of Jade's double life. Swanson then tried to play on Seema's religious beliefs, saying, quote, "Yesterday, you told me that your safety did not matter, as you were paying for your past karmas. If you do not help us to prevent more killing and find justice, then you create new karmas, which could be powerful enough to cause you to become an animal in your next life." No one has ever been charged in the Windsor, Connecticut double homicide. Anyone with information or a tip about the case of Shampaben Patel and Anita Patel should call the tip line at 860-548-0606 or toll free at 1-866-623-8058. All calls and emails will be kept confidential. Thanks so much for visiting my channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. I'll be posting mostly true crime, but also other mysteries and conspiracy theories. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon. I hope your holiday seasons are going well, and that you all have peaceful and fulfilling weeks. Bye.